Let us bless the Most High as we enter in unto this time, as we come before the presence of the Most High. And as we lift our hearts in prayer, Father, we thank you for this blessed day. For we have walked in this day because of you. You have protected us. You provided for us. And now as we come into the presence of the word that's spoken by your realm, Son, we are yet to be blessed again to know of the things to come and how we must prepare in this troubling times. We give you honor and praise, and we thank you that you have called us to be part of the elect remnant. And as we sit attentively, Most High, we ask that each and every hearer listen with the ears that will go straight to their soul and minister to their spirit, that we will hear what you desire for us to understand this hour. And let our faith be heightened as we take hold of the word as it comes forth. We ask this in your most omnipotent and mighty name. Amen. Laka. So shall it be, as it is said, so it is received, and so it is done. The word is born. Born is the word of the Most High in me. Beloved, it is with grateful heart that we let us express our thanks unto the glory of heaven for his loving kindness, that we can live forever. We thank the Most High for bringing us unto the healing of our souls and to deliver us out of the darkness that we once perceived as light. Grateful we are unto him for the founder and leader of the fourth house, the Melek and Prophet Eshadar. We love and honor the holy overseer, the Malka Solisaya, as we honor her, and render and yield tribute unto the prophet Crown Prince Jahiel and evangelist Crown Princess Eldara, and the entire sovereign house. Indeed, it is a blessed privilege to come before you and to be able to convey and bring to your remembrance the mighty things that the Father has spoken through his holy prophet in Malachi. Come now, let us take this journey into the revealing of the Most High as he utters the things that would come to pass in this dimension known as earth. To those that were present when these prophecies were first revealed, as well as unto those who have been added unto the family of Tan Beth'Yahu, we invite you to partake now once again the utterance of the Most High by his realm Son, as we are witnesses to the unfolding of the things spoken, now manifesting in the earth. The watchman is seated upon the wall, sounding the alarm concerning things afar off that others observe not. Thus, the holy Melek trumpeted on April 13th of 1998. Russia and China have a joint alliance and have united their economy. China now has a threatening military force with its brown and blue water navy and has received a warship from Russia. Russia's military force is not as strong as America or China. Nevertheless, their nuclear armor is equivalent to America's. America's military force is well-rounded on the battlefield, the air, naval ships, and by nuclear weapons. But Russia and China are aware of this. Therefore, to defeat this nation of America, they have joined together, as it was uttered in 1998. As the Holy Malachi continued, He revealed again on April 19th of 1999, declaring, North and South Korea have been in conflict for years. North Korea, which is communist, desired to take over South Korea, and America would not allow it. America is not mighty when it comes to morality, but they are mighty when it comes to wealth, wickedness, and military strength. America has positioned their military forces in various parts of the world, including the Middle East and Africa, and a door has now been opened. The gate to the backyard of Russia has opened. Although America already has a military base in Germany, now it gives them even a greater advantage in the name and the move of the United Nations to maneuver military forces into the backyard of Russia. They know war is pending and it is inevitable. However, they will have millions upon millions of Americans believing that there is peace, crying for peace, and broadcasting propaganda. Hence, failing to realize that we are on the brink of a major war that will upset the economy of the entire world, as the Holy Melek declared. Once again trumpeted on October 12th of the year 2000, as the Holy Malachi read from the book of Ezekiel, he read chapter 38 and verse 9, Thou shalt ascend and come like a storm. Thou shalt be like a cloud to cover the land. Thou and all thy bands, and many people with thee. The Holy Nabi proclaimed, This speaks concerning Russia, Turkey, Ethiopia, Libya, and many of the Muslim nations and their gathering. Saudi Arabia, an ally to the United States, will gather against Israel. As of now, the United States stands between Israel and Saudi Arabia as an arm of peace to prevent them from fighting. Iraq, Kuwait, Iran, and many other nations also. China will send thousands upon thousands of footmen. This speaks of Asia, Asia Minor, that will be gathering and bringing their bands, a mighty force of footmen. The Muscovite army, known as Russia, it has been declared and revealed by the highest power that Russia and China are united. It is all about money. China supports Russia because the Russian economy is poor. Russia, in return, sells nuclear missiles and weapons to China. Now China is a powerful military force. Gore and Bush debated, and Bush stated, military is not as strong as it was, while Gore contended that the military is strong. The Holy Prophet declared they are not. They are no longer the greatest force in the world. China has a powerful force. Russia is a boiling pot, prepared to boil over. The Holy Melek declared, this is not healthy. In less than 2 years, approximately from now, they will have a ballistic missile that could reach here to the United States within 5 to 6 hours. The Holy Prophet continued that Germany and the United States, their military is very thin in structure, for they have extended themselves to help other nations. They have spent trillions of dollars to do so. Instead of bettering the army, securing the military force and the people that are a part of that force, they have spent trillions of dollars in a wasteful manner. Bush is correct, declared the Holy Prophet. It has been prophesied some years ago concerning Reaganomics, when the Holy Prophet declared that the remnant of Reagan is coming back. Long before the Holy Melek prophesied this unto us, he was in Morocco prophesying this to the Palestinians. And yet again, the holy Melek sounded the alarm of things to come on October 21st of 2007, proclaiming the teaching of the latter days, the end times, things known and not known, things that will occur and happen in government, the shifting of the authority in government and what it means will be unfolded. The President of the United States appeared on television and alarmed America and the world concerning World War III. And he stated, if Iran develops the potential, the ability to make nuclear weapons, we will be in World War III. He did not say, I think we will be in World War III. He declared, we will be in World War III. When World War III arrives, there is no turning back, the Holy Prophet stated. When Iran obtains nuclear weapons, they will be a threat to Israel and will draw the United States into battle. Once the United States enters into war, Russia and China will also engage. There is war right now. Russia's weapons are directed at America. The Cold War is over. It is hot, and it is about to catch fire, the Holy Melek declared. As he continued, he said, we are in the time, it is in the winds of it, but before this was declared, you were warned by what the Most High proclaimed. The Father conveyed this word to us. He said, he comes quickly. This announcement came from one of the most powerful leaders in the world. To broadcast this captures the attention of the entire world. What he expressed is what is reported to him from the Pentagon and the CIA. Russia is assisting Iran in developing nuclear weapons. When this nation declares World War III, nuclear war, it is over. There is not a prayer or a fast that anyone can go on to deliver them. You must be delivered before then. There is no delivering during that time because the Most High already gave knowledge and wisdom to lead us. The Holy Prophet said that there is no getting ready, that we must be ready. You have heard it before it comes. If it comes, it is too late. There is no getting away. In that day, you will observe millions upon millions, even billions of people, anarchy, disruption, and chaos as they attempt to get away. No car can propel you out of the range. You must be out of the way. This should alarm you. The Holy Prophet declared, it alarms me, he said, for he takes nothing for granted. Not because Bush said it, but because he knows what the Most High declared. And he stated he was alarmed. Therefore, he teaches on faith, teaches us to walk therein and to grasp the teachings of the kingdom of the Most High. This is how it all comes together. The rudimental, fundamental teachings of faith will help one to grasp the kingdom message and the revelations of it. When these things begin to take place, your faith will secure you, the Holy Melek declared. Once again, the trumpet was sounded by the Holy Prophet on August 18th of 2018 as he proclaimed, World War III has begun. It began in 2012, he stated. While everyone was looking at 2012 based on the Mayan calendar as the end of the world, they had no idea that something else was brewing in the shadow. But we did. The Holy Melek conveyed it unto us that we were warned that year in 2012 that it would be the beginning, the shifting of things in the earth. Major shiftings, alterings, and undercurrent shall begin to surface in the year 2012, he told us. The Holy Prophet warned that it will continue and it will get worse, pinpointing the year 2018. So from 2012 to 2018, World War III has begun. Many look for World War III by the gathering of the nations and the militaries fighting. This is not how war begins, the Holy Prophet declared. As massive earthquakes do not begin suddenly, it takes and it gives a warning, and the warning comes with shivers and shaking in the earth. They last for a minute, sometimes several minutes or more, but it is a warning that something on a catastrophic level is coming. Now we are at the beginning of World War III. When nations come together and the war begins, then it is too late. The Holy Nabi stated, recall 2 weeks ago when he prayed and asked the Father to tarry the time. He did not say unto the Father to tarry his Son. He asked the Father to tarry what is taking place in the earth. That will produce a great rift in this nation called America, because the pot is boiling. He asked the Father to tarry the changing of the money system, since we are at the brink of that. And as the Holy Prophet continued in his utterance, on July 28th of 2019, he said, these prophecies are gauges of the time that we are in. They will create war. Review history, World War I and World War II. Review the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, many of those in governments, all orchestrated the establishment of World War I and World War II. It was all planned. Why? Because war is money. If you want to build new structures, new cities, start a war to tear down the old cities. Europe was old. They needed a newer Europe and new laws. You cannot implement new laws when people are accustomed to old laws. They will not tolerate it. It will cause a civil uprising. If you want to implement new laws or change certain things, life-changing laws and rules, the people will not permit it, the Holy Prophet said. Therefore, wars are implemented. When war starts, everything is torn down. The government comes down, and you rebuild a new government. It is all planned. They need war, and they also need to test new weapons. Germany had technology that was beyond their day, and it is used today by the shadow government, the Holy Melek said. Underground cities that you will not see in this day until the war occurs. After World War III, you will see this technology arise from the ground. Approximately at the age of 18, the Most High took his Holy Melek and Prophet into these facilities underground. He showed him the presence of entities outside of man. He showed him where the presence of this technology was being stored underground. Before they ever voiced it, he knew of this and he shared it with us. We are preparing for the shift. Beloved, as the Holy Malachi has shown us that World War III has actually already begun. We look now to see the further revealings and the manifestation. For the word of Beloved, the word of the highest power and his prophets are sure and cannot fail. Holy ones, as we observe the unfolding of what has been declared, we set our minds and our hearts in faith, knowing that this word will come to pass. We must with all diligence be prepared, for the holy Malachi has forewarned us of the things to come. And he says that when it arrives, we must be in place and we must be ready. On April 15th of this year, 2020, an article entitled COVID-19 and the Doomsday Clock, an observation on managing global risk. On January 23rd of 2020, the Science and Security Board of the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists moved the hands of the doomsday clock forward 100 seconds to midnight. They stated, "We, the board members, warned that the world's institutional and political capacity for reducing the possibility of a catastrophic civilization diminish, that we are in need of action immediately. And this timetable, this time clock, they set it back, not because they saw what was coming, but because the word of the prophet as he prayed to the Most High, that the time would be tarried for the people of the Most High to be ready." 3 months later, the coronavirus outbreak as a global pandemic demonstrates the importance of domestic and international governance, not only in the mitigation of the responses to global challenges and a crisis such as a pandemic, but also in their prevention. The world is now observing that governmental dysfunction costs lives. Competent, timely actions to prevent and mitigate future global crises, such as to include biological and nuclear and climatic changes and warfare, and other major threats, depend on the world's ability to adjust and address 3 fundamental government concerns. First, repair the worldwide erosion of infrastructure and managing crises. Second, concern relates to immediately arresting and rapidly reversing the decreased commitment among nations to international cooperation. And third, this concern centers on addressing the manipulation and distortion of information that has led to the deterioration of the government and their civic responsibility. So in the case of nuclear weapons, proactive leadership would involve the United States, Russia, and China engaging in serious strategic stability and arms control talks. This is what they are asking for. Understand that what this article conveys when they proclaim that the hands of the doomsday clock move forward 100 seconds at midnight implies that the world is 100 seconds closer to imminent destruction. Just ponder that for a moment. The Holy Melek has proclaimed repeatedly that we do not have much time. As we just heard in this reading, and as the realm sun has continually showed us, that we must be prepared, for the prophets are the keepers of time. The following 7 countries have the highest potential for catapulting the world further into World War III. They are the relationship with China versus the US, North Korea versus the US, Iran versus the US, Iran versus Israel, Turkey versus the US, India versus Pakistan, and Russia versus the US. These 7 countries of conflict have in some aspects experienced long-standing conflict with each other. And that is a key, that is important, a major catalyst here. So we'll review some of the historic and current events, which provides us a greater understanding of how these various conflicts can spill over and help further launch the furtherance of World War III. We're going to begin with the first area of conflict, which is China and the United States. Since the 1950s, when the Communist Revolution was established and the People's Republic of China by their Chinese leader Mao on October 1st, the peasant-backed communists, this is October 1st of 1950, the peasant-backed communist nation defeated the nationalist government of Chiang and his troops in Taiwan. The ousted national government was supported by the United States, which for decades limited U.S. relations with mainland China. So when the Korean War started, China, along with Russia, supported the communist North Korea's invasion of South Korea, and the United States supported South Korea. You can see how things are lining up and how the nations are joining, just as the word of the Most High declared. This conflict ushered in the demise of over 4 million people, and the conflict ended when China, North Korea, and the United Nations signed the Armistice Agreement. Thereafter, China asserted control over Tibet, which even caused the Dalai Lama to flee to India. China and the United States entered a long Cold War period from the 1950s, and it was broken in 1972 when President Nixon visited China. It was the first time that an American president had visited China since the 1950s. And after this visit, diplomatic relations between the U.S. and China normalized officially in 1979. As China pursued modernization, this led to the emerging conflict with the United States. Although they were technically disadvantaged, the sheer number of people in China was a plus that would allow them leverage of their manpower for economic power. And we see the effects of this today, where just about everything you see used for commerce is produced in China. The United States has accused China of stealing trade secrets and various governmental entities, as well as large American corporations. This, along with Russia providing military weapons and nuclear technology to China, China now stands as a major threat to the American dominance in economics, military, and nuclear advancement. China has the largest military in the world with 2 million men enlisted. They have recently upgraded their brown water navy and now have a blue water navy that, due to the military sales from Russia, makes them a close contender, if not a true rival, to the American military might. China has and continues to challenge the United States in several areas. The first challenge that China has made to the perceived world dominance of the United States is in economics, and namely in 2 areas. First, in manufacturing, and second, in currency domination. Upon review of the manufacturing sector, it's noted, and you can clearly see, that American businesses were sending their manufacturing overseas to China because of the labor rates and the cheaper costs. So while China was absorbing all of the manufacturing from America and many parts of the world, China was also gathering the US dollar and the monies that these companies paid in order to have their products manufactured there. China continued in their dominance and gaining control of becoming the largest manufacturer in the entire world. And thus that challenged the US, where today there are major trade embargoes and fighting and disputing over the fact that China has such a strong hold over the US. European nations have relied on American trade as well as the formation of NATO. NATO's purpose is to provide a safeguard of freedom and security with all of its members by political and military means. The collective defense is also the heart of the alliance of NATO and creates the spirit of solidarity and cohesion among its members. So NATO also embodies the transatlantic link by which the security of North America is tied to the security of Europe. It is an intergovernmental organization which provides a forum where members can consult together on any issues they may choose to raise and take decisions on political and military matters affecting their security. During the Cold War, NATO focused on collective defense and the protection of its members from potential threats emanating from the Soviet Union. With the collapse of the Soviet Union, along with the rise of non-state actors affecting international security, many new security threats emerge. NATO now focuses on countering these threats by utilizing collective defense, managing crisis situations, and encouraging cooperative security. So in 1949, there were 12 founding members of this alliance in NATO. It was Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Iceland, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, the United Kingdom, and the United States. Currently, there are 30 member states in NATO, and it does not include Russia or China. Since neither China or the Soviet Union are part of NATO, there is an implicit competition between the member states of NATO and those of Russia and China. So you see now how the alliances are lining up. By the establishment of NATO, the United States established itself as the world leader in almost all aspects of diplomacy, economics, and the military. Russia has been a secret and not so secret supporter of China, for as we know, the Holy Prophet declared and shared with us of this union, but they tried to keep it a secret for many years. And Russia has provided much of the technology and military infrastructure that China has come into. Nevertheless, it is the cooperative interest that China and Russia manifest when it comes to defeating the United States. Shortly after the economic fallout from the global financial crisis in 2008-2009, other countries whose currency are considered world reserve currency raised the question of the US dollar remaining in its position of authority in the currency market. China is ready to challenge the dollar, was a report noted in October of 2009. The report stated, much has been written about the extent to which the United States can continue to play its role as the world's predominant economic power. The world reserve currency is a benchmark by which nations value the currency. The US dollar is known as a world reserve currency, which means that that currency is a currency that the central banks hold as part of their foreign exchange reserves. So in theory, though any currency can be a world reserve currency, in practice and actuality, the central bank's foreign exchange reserves were dominated by a few currencies. The IMF, or the International Monetary Fund, recognizes 8 world currencies: the US dollar, the euro, the Chinese yuan, the Japanese yen, the British pound, the Australian dollar, the Canadian dollar, and the Swiss franc. Of these, the US dollar is by far the most widely used in global foreign currency exchanges and reserves. Nearly 60% of the world's foreign exchange reserves are dominated in dollars. Since 2009, senior Chinese officials speculated on the future of the US dollar, which had led observers to conclude that the Chinese yuan is set up to usurp the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. This speculation reached a feverish pitch during the BRICS summit, which was held in June of 2009, when one commentator stated that emerging with a pointed gun aimed at the US, China is ready to take the lead as the world reserve currency. This summit was attended by the heads of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. As you can see, the alliances lining up. Although China is still a long way off from challenging the US dollar's global reserve currency status, as the largest holder of US debt, Beijing is undoubtedly nervous about the prospect of a weaker dollar and is taking steps to diversify its reserves, as well as to internationalize the Chinese yuan. There seems to be little doubt that in the next decade, as this report has said, China will emerge as a major player in the international finance system, giving the strategic, geopolitical, and economic implications of these developments. The report attempts to provide a clear understanding of what is motivating Beijing's current moves and where its policy is likely headed, and the implications for the United States. In 2009, in private meetings with the U.S. counterparts, Chinese officials took every opportunity to voice their fears that the Obama administration's loose monetary policy and heavy deficit was eroding the value of Beijing's massive reserves. And as they continue, they went on and publicly told the media, we lent such a huge fund to the United States, and of course we're concerned to speak of it. They made it known to the world that they are the holders of the largest debt of the U.S., not only dollars received from commerce, manufacturing, and other trades, but also a large holder of real estate in this country. This was shared by the Holy Melek over the years. As they continued, AmericanExpress.com, a world financial organization providing money exchange and credit card services worldwide, provided an article entitled, Could the Dollar Be Replaced as the World Currency Reserve? This article acknowledges that the talk of the US dollar being replaced has been ongoing for nearly 2 decades, and in the second quarter of 2019, the total dollar value of global foreign exchange reserves stood at $11.7 trillion, of which 6.8, more than half, were in US dollars or dollar-dominated assets. For this reason, the dollar is often referred to simply as the world reserve currency. As the article stated, if there was a shift in the preferred reserve currency, there would be an economic shift in power, making China the economic force in the world. Knowing America, they would not allow this to happen. America historically has systematically interfered in various economies of the world, affecting the financial prospect of these emerging nations. So, beloved, we can see the reason why China and the United States could go to war. With the dominance of the U.S. having lost its manufacturing overseas, and the challenge of losing its control of being a leading preferred world currency, China has relentlessly worked at turning the tables against the United States. The third aspect of conflict between China and the U.S. lies in nuclear armament and technological advancement. Prior to 1939, there was no nuclear weapons in the earth, as it is written or proclaimed by this writer. The Nuclear Age Peace Foundation curated an article, A Brief History of Nuclear Proliferation, giving a comprehensive overview of nuclear armament in the earth. October 1939, U.S. President Franklin D. Roosevelt received a letter from Albert Einstein stating Hitler's Germany was working on building an atomic bomb. Roosevelt launched a secret effort in cooperation with the United Kingdom. The Manhattan Project involved over 30 different research, production, and testing sites that included both plutonium and uranium enrichment facilities. By the end of the war, 4 different technologies were industrialized, and implosion and enrichment strategies succeeded at the same time. The United States conducted its first nuclear test in 1945. Germany surrendered, and the threat of Nazi atomic bombs no longer existed. However, the destructive capabilities of the new weapon were utilized against Japan in August of 1945, when a uranium bomb leveled Hiroshima and a plutonium bomb devastated Nagasaki. The Soviet Union became a nuclear power in 1949 and shared that knowledge with China in 1953. China signed an agreement with the Soviet Union, whereby Beijing supplied uranium ore in exchange for the Soviet Union's technical assistance in developing nuclear weapons. In 1953, China established a research program stating it was for civilian nuclear energy. Initially, the Chinese intended to pursue both enriched uranium and plutonium routes, but after the Soviet aid was cut off in 1960 and the scarcity of technological expertise and financial resources, the development enrichment route discontinued. China tested an atomic bomb using highly enriched uranium in 1964. The first plutonium explosion came in 1968, and China also presumably tested the hydrogen bomb. Today, 9 countries have nuclear weapons, and many more can easily acquire those, although only 5 countries are officially recognized as possessing nuclear weapons. In 1968, the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty sought to control the proliferation of nuclear armament. The signers of the agreement are the United States, Russia, the United Kingdom, France, and China. 4 nations never joined the NPT, but are known to possess nuclear weapons, and that is Israel, India, Pakistan, and North Korea. It is of utmost importance that you comprehend and understand what you just heard. When you realize all the nations mentioned has the capacity to release nuclear warheads, and at the time appointed, not by man, but by the highest power, we will be thrown into the winds of a nuclear holocaust. This requires a soberness and a recollection of what was shared in the early portion of this report. We must be ready. We must make ready. And when the time comes, we must hold true in faith, for it is faith that will deliver us through as the people of the Most High. As mentioned, we mentioned the 7 areas where nuclear proliferation, nuclear war could possibly begin at any moment. There was an arms control report in July of 2019 that reported nuclear weapons, who has what, at a glance. They reported the number of nuclear warheads or delivery mechanisms that each country has in their arsenal, as reported in 2019. The United States is reported to have 6,185 nuclear warheads. Russia, having more, is said to have 6,490 nuclear warheads. China, 290. India, 140. Pakistan, 160. Korea, it is unknown, for they will not reveal what they have. The troubling fact of these numbers is that it only requires a few of these missiles implemented with strategic precision to bring havoc upon the entire earth. Only a few. No one will be able to escape. No one. Consider, due to the known alliance between Russia and China, they collectively are in possession of more nuclear armament than the United States. The question must then be asked, where is the United States' advantage when they are outnumbered by the combination of Russia and China? Know this and do not be beguiled. These are the numbers that they report. Recall that China and Russia have an agreement. We cannot be naive to believe that the numbers reported by each country is the true numbers in their arsenal. To the contrary, We know that each country listed has engaged in propaganda and disseminated falsehoods. So we cannot take the information that they have provided as totally foolproof or that it is their total armament. The potential conflict that can unfold between the United States and China can be summed up as follows. China has taken over the world's market in manufacturing due to American companies seeking to reduce their overhead and increase their profits. This was the beginning of what is known as outsourcing. Currently, India is the new China, and American companies are outsourcing there because they can pay smaller salaries than what the American workers are asking for, and thus the American workers are left jobless. Many American companies have closed their manufacturing plants here in the United States and have taken their manufacturing process abroad. China's economy strengthened and surpassed the American manufacturing sector. This is the main sector that is scrutinized when economists examine the gross national product of nations. They only consider their bottom line and the profits that they would obtain. The United States did not perceive that at the same time they were providing these jobs to China, they were also providing China with their manufacturing and technological know-how and secrets. China, being a good student, learned the cunningness of the U.S. companies and used that information to create and challenge. After cornering the manufacturing sector, China found itself with large sums of U.S. currency from its business affiliations and proceeded, as we mentioned, to purchase American real estate, U.S. stocks, and bonds. After the economic collapse in 2008, China began to challenge America's place in the world when it came to reserve currency, because they were the largest holder of American debt. And as mentioned, they began to assert that there should be a review as to who should control the American debt. The COVID pandemic has also precipitated further conflict between the United States and China, which has led to even colder relations between the two. There is a very, very perilous situation before us, and we are in grave times today. For you hear constantly as the government of America and the U.S. president is all out in his comments with China in relation to COVID and how it was released. On July 7th of 2020, China flexed its military presence in the South China Sea. This is just a week ago, bringing fear into such nations as Vietnam, the Philippines, and Malaysia. U.S. and Chinese military ships based in the region came within eyesight of each other, a stone throws away. NBC reported that this military standoff came due to Chinese outcry over 2 U.S. Navy aircraft cruisers who were cruising the South China Sea. This was viewed by China as a needless nationalistic approach by the U.S. administration to provoke them. These patrols involved U.S. military ships deliberately crossing through waters that China has claimed they have jurisdiction over. The patrol missions were a rare case in which international law, defense of weaker nations, and the pursuit of national interests are aligned. So as the policy is stated, and it dates back to 1979, and this is an issue before then, it is widely accepted as a principle of the UN Convention of the Law of Sea, stating that international waters extend no further than 13.8 miles from the country's shore. That means, for example, once you go out 13 to 14 miles from the shore of a country, those waters in between are considered international waters. For example, if Russia wanted to send a spy ship within 17 miles of a sensitive U.S. submarine base on the East Coast, it absolutely can. And it absolutely has done that. But the Chinese Communist Party doesn't think that that principle should apply to the South China Sea. It's a body of water that's boxed in from the southern part of China, which is above, Vietnam to the right, Malaysia below, and the Philippines to the left. And what China is saying is that the China Sea, encompassed by these four nations, should be the sole discretion of China to have those waters and not be considered international territory. This is so sensitive, beloved, that yesterday, July 10th, Bloomberg reported that the Trump administration plans to make an announcement next week as escalating tensions in the South China Sea, where Washington and Beijing are vying for military supremacy. The U.S. has raised concerns over China's decision to conduct military exercises in these contested waters, and they call it unlawful. President Trump has intensified his criticism over Beijing over these issues, as well as we had mentioned, trade and the coronavirus. China claims that more than 80% of the South China Sea backs up to their claim that in 1947, the map that they have shows that it is all encompassed in their waters. Vietnam, the Philippines, Brunei, Malaysia, and Taiwan claims parts of the same maritime area. So Beijing has rejected the claims that it's doing anything out of the ordinary when it comes to the South China Sea, and has accused the U.S. of trying to sow discord between China and those Southeast Asian nations. So, beloved, as dangerous as this sounds, we can see the seriousness of the relationship, the tension between China and the U.S., and how that is a powder keg that can easily further the launch and the action in World War III. But we must continue, for there are other areas, other countries, other relationships that will also affect the proliferation of World War III. We look now toward India and Pakistan. As we investigate this regional area of conflict, we'll give you a brief history of the two nations and how the effects of war in that region and the world they engage in could lead to a nuclear exchange. In the past 10 years, the relationship between India and Pakistan has worsened, bringing the countries to the brink of war. Since the partitioning of British India in 1947 and the subsequent creation of India and Pakistan, the two nations have been involved in several wars, conflicts, and military standoffs. In 2019, the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, he attempted to reduce the autonomy of Kashmir. Kashmir is a bordering province on the borders of both India and Pakistan. And they're trying to reduce the tensions there, and India and Pakistan fight over who has the sovereignty over that land. These steps, they've caused so much unrest within India and highlighted the long-standing tensions between Delhi and Islamabad. The partition of India was the division by the British India, into these two independent nations. So the partition involved the division of the province of Bengal and Punjab based on the district-wise of the non-Muslim and the Muslim majorities. And they began to divide the two countries. But in the division, you had different cultural and religious sects that were on opposite sides as they were divided. And it began to lead to a continual effort of war that has taken place between Pakistan and India. When the partition took place, it's been said that as much as 10 to 12 million people along the religious lines were created where they were displaced and had nowhere to go. And they found that this large-scale separation caused violence and a large loss of life due to this partition. Between 200,000 to 2 million people died at this time of separation. And then you had the 10 to 12 million who were still displaced. The violent nature of this partition created an atmosphere of hostility and suspicion between India and Pakistan that still plagues them to this day. This partitioning and creation of the dominions of India and Pakistan has led to wars, conflicts, military standoffs, and especially along the border where now there are efforts of terrorism. And with the exception of the Indo-Pakistani War, all of these wars took place because of the separation of this partition. World War II found that Great Britain and British India experiencing economic stress caused by the war, that those who wished for this Muslim state to become part of this state as part of British India, that they wanted a clean break and independence. So once independence came, nearly 1/3 of the Muslim population of British India, they actually remained in India. But the violence continued between the Hindus, the Sikhs, and the Muslims, resulting in those 2 million people that were killed. As we behold, as history continues in this division and war between the two, and as the split came to place, this has escalated to the point where the relationships between both of these countries, through isolation amongst themselves, has caused a global catastrophic effect between India and Pakistan to become a possible doorway of launching World War III as they continue in World War III, and the nuclear holocaust that we've been made aware of. The American Association of the Advancement of Science authorizing and stating that rapidly expanding nuclear arsenals in Pakistan and India portend regional and global catastrophe, which provides an in-depth look at the examination of the effect of nuclear war in this region, and if it was to happen, how it would affect the entire world. They reported that neither Pakistan nor India is likely to initiate a nuclear conflict without substantial provocation. India has declared its policy that it's a no first use of nuclear weapons, except in response to an attack with biological or chemical weapons from Pakistan. Pakistan has declared that it would only use nuclear weapons if it could not stop an invasion by conventional means, or if it were attacked by nuclear weapons. Unfortunately, these two countries, they've already had 4 wars: in 1947, in 1965, in 1971, and in 1999. The British arsenals of Britain and their nuclear base, France, China, Israel, India, and Pakistan are thought to lie within the range collectively of 100 to 300 warheads each. Although the use of these weapons by any of these countries could produce a regional and likely global disaster, India and Pakistan are of special concern because of the factors, including this long history of military clashes. The American Association of the Advancement of Science article states that the rapidly expanding nuclear arsenals in Pakistan and India pretend to be a real threat. This article concluded that if either India or Pakistan were to enter into war, that the urban populations in India and Pakistan would be totally affected. Not only that, but the total urban populations in India and Pakistan are projected to increase by about 90% between the year 2000 and 2025. India would suffer 2 to 3 times more fatalities and casualties than Pakistan. Because in this scenario, Pakistan uses more weapons than India, but because India has a much larger population and more densely populated. However, as the percentage of urban population is used, Pakistan's loss would be about twice that of India. In general, the fatalities and the casualties increase rapidly on both sides. So whereas Pakistan and India may have 400 to 500 nuclear weapons by 2025, if India uses 100 strategic weapons to attack the urban centers in Pakistan, and Pakistan uses 150, their fatalities would reach between 50 to 125 million people dying. The nuclear ignited fires could release 16 to 36 tons of black carbon smoke. The smoke would rise into the upper stratosphere and expand globally within weeks. This would produce a decline in sunlight between 20 to 35%, which would cool the Earth's surface 2 to 5 degrees and reduce precipitation by 15 to 30%. Productivity worldwide would decline 15 to 30% on the land and 5 to 15% in the oceans. These climate changes are large enough to cause significant agricultural damage globally. Additionally, with temperatures decline, would be triggered by the smoke from burning cities, a global disaster threatening food production worldwide and mass starvation, as well as severe disruption in the natural ecosystems. So, beloved, as we see the tension here, and if in just this one group, this one area of attack between possibly Pakistan and India, we see the US and China. We know that there's also tension between the US and Turkey, the US and Iran, Iran and Israel, Russia and the US. And as these things take place, this nuclear proliferation, these nuclear attacks take place in various areas, not to mention and leave out North Korea. On June 16th of 2020, the New York Times authored the following article: Worst clash in decades on disputed India-China border kills 20 Indian troops. And what took place is that on the China and Indian border, you have both armies staged there. And they said that they would not fight in conventional warfare. But they had a clash where they used sticks and knives, and it's claimed that about 17 Indian soldiers and more than 20 Chinese soldiers had died during this clash. Over the past several decades, there's been insistent confrontation between China and India, but now neither side was willing to compromise, raising the risk of more fighting, even if the countries don't actually want to go to war. There was no reason for this to happen, as the author said, unless it was a military standoff that just got out of control. But yet it was a powder keg where right now both India and China have increased their military presence on their borders. The wider scope of this is that Pakistan has a strong relationship with China. The two have exchanged nuclear secrets. China has invested tens of billions of dollars in building infrastructure to link Western China and the Arabian Sea through Pakistan, especially at the port of Gwadar on the Arabian Sea. China and India respectively account for about 37% of the world's population and are the second and fifth largest economies respectively. They are also the second and third largest spenders on defense and are ranked fourth and fifth on the global firepower index. And the article went on to say that if India and China were to go into a nuclear war with each other, once again, not only would they bring catastrophic consequences to each of the countries, but that the nuclear fallout would affect the entire world. India's army presently has an edge in terms of their experience if the war is fought in India. India's fought numerous wars with Pakistan, and most recently they fought in 1999. And has also fought for decades in terms of the war and the changes with Kashmir. Conversely, China has not fought a major war with anyone since its brief war with Vietnam, where it helped Vietnam in 1979, and has used the UN peacekeeping missions as a way for its troops to gain experience. But in particular, the Chinese are in a better position to concentrate and amass forces more than the Indians. It doesn't matter how good experienced your troops are, as the article is writing. They're saying that China has the ability, because they have more troops, to come in and understand that because of their relationship with Pakistan, they'll also come in with Pakistan. On June 27th of this year, 2020, the Chinese Morning Sun curated an article saying, why is Pakistan a big factor in China's border clashes with India? The latest border dispute between the two Asian giants took place just a few hundred kilometers from the line of control that separates Pakistan and India. Both sides have claimed Kashmir as their own since the partition in 1947. In August of last year, the Indian government revoked Article 370 of the Constitution that granted Kashmir significant autonomy, placing it under the direct rule of India. China was angered by India's revocation of Article 370 because it asserted India's formal rights to the entire disputed region. The move has asserted India's control over an Indian-administered Kashmir, an area that Pakistan claims India occupies unlawfully. The revocation prompted swift condemnation from Pakistan, and as a result, by all that's integrating into Kashmir, into the Indian Union, it undercuts the legal case that the Chinese have, because in part, the old city of Pakistan primarily is a key gain of control for travel from China in through to Pakistan. China is presently building what they call the Great Road Project. And this is a road that they are building from China that'll go through Pakistan and cut clear into Europe and thus into the Middle East as well. So this is a key strategic place for China. And that's why they are very angry that India has taken claim over this place. So as we see now, we have yet another powder keg where there's India and Pakistan at odds. And now China also comes into the mix, siding with Pakistan. And Russia is in alliance with China. All part of the proliferation of World War III. As we continue in this prophecy report, we will go into the other areas and the combinations and the relationships of the other countries. We know that Russia is a major conflict with the U.S. And I must say that even as recent as June 25th of this year, U.S. fighter jets intercepted Russian military aircraft near Alaska, 50 miles away from Alaska. 6 times in the past month, U.S. fighter jets intercepted the Russian military aircraft. The Russian aircraft is stating it's international airspace. But they are doing it, as it's stated, to test the American response and see how quickly the U.S. would respond to Russia's presence. Russia is also in great association and close ties with North Korea. North Korea and the U.S. presently is a powder keg yet again. It was reported on June 12th of this year, 2020, North Korea said that it was pulling away from its relationship with the United States 2 years after a historic handshake between President Trump and the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un that took place in Singapore. As it reads, never again will we provide the U.S. chief executive with another package to be used for achievements without receiving any returns, North Korea's foreign minister said. Nothing is more hypocritical than an empty promise. Trump became the first sitting U.S. president to meet with the leader of North Korea in June of 2018, and later took an unprecedented step onto North Korean soil in 2019 with the aim of denuclearizing the Korean peninsula. The two men made history and headlines when they met in Singapore after months of trading inflammatory remarks toward one another. The meeting led to a joint statement at the end of the Singapore summit, which laid out terms to destabilize the region and commit to denuclearization and to free prisoners that both sides had. But the political experts say that little progress has been made by either side. Relations improved following the Singapore summit, but as the Prime Minister stated, they shifted into despair, and presently North Korea is pulling out of the agreement. When the agreement was made, North Korea agreed to halt its nuclear weapons race. Now that they have pulled out, North Korea has once again not only started its nuclear race, but they're also testing their nuclear weapons. And that is angering the U.S. And it has become yet another powder keg, another dangerous situation that is being closely watched presently as it is escalating. What North Korea has also said, and the reason why they're being as bold as they are, is that when the U.S. struck Iran and killed the general, North Korea took notice of that. North Korea said they also took notice that Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi was also killed by the U.S. But they went on to say that if these countries had nuclear weapons and armament, that perhaps those leaders would be alive today. So thus, North Korea is standing firm on not only its possession of nuclear warhead, but they are not sharing with the world how much they have and their capacity and capabilities. Yet again, another area where the U.S. is involved, this time with North Korea. For the U.S. is heavily vested, as we have learned, in South Korea, whereas China and Russia heavily vested in North Korea. All of these potential areas where the threat and continuation of World War III continues to rage on. Holy ones, if we have declared this word from the Most High, we know that His word cannot fail. So we are in great preparation, making ourselves ready for these things to come. For whereas man may call these scenarios predictions, the Most High in His word has made it known to His people far in advance that these things will surely come to pass. For He has declared that World War III has already begun. The prophet Ezra declared that which would come, and it came to pass. The holy prophets of time declared that which should come, as it continues to come to pass. And in these times that are rapidly unfolding, we must remain steadfast in faith, beloved, watching and taking heed in all the instructions that is given unto us. For the holy prophet declared, as we open up in this report, that therefore, he said, we teach on faith to walk therein, to grasp the teachings of the kingdom of heaven. This is how it all comes together, the holy Malachi said. The rudimental, fundamental teachings of faith will help one to grasp the kingdom message and the revelations of it. And when these things begin to take place, it is going to be your faith that will secure you. That is why there is no time for emotions and idiosyncrasies to take part in your life. You must increase your faith, and in that we will see who will bear fruit, some 30, some 60, some 100-fold. That is what it's going to take to make it through the times to come. It is our faith that will carry us through. It is our love unto our righteous leader who is preparing the holy elect remnant on this journey to the end. And as we close the book of the prophet Esdras, and the seal and the brand in our hearts and our minds remain intact, we glorify and we thank the highest power forevermore that we are the called, the chosen, made ready and prepared for those things to come.